You've been talking in your sleep, saying things you can't repeat. It's got you feeling lonely. All those dreams, they come alive. All the thoughts you've held inside, they are far from holy. And day by day, skin sheds.
Welcome here to the Indie Bar. My name is Bob Gordon from Around the Sound, and we're having a round with Lisa.
Hello.
Of and with and Fields.
Fields.
Here at the Indie Bar, where you've played quite often, but we'll go into that a little bit later. And you're currently in the midst of your single tour for Neverland. How's that going?
Yeah, it's going great so far. It's kicked off earlier this month, and it'll go right until the end of December, so it's busy.
Cool. Well, we'll go into that a bit more, but what I want to open with is the fact that quite recently you came back from a tour of your home country, Ireland, and so what was it like heading back home?
It was amazing. Obviously, I've got lots of family there, so I had to combine work and play, which was not good for the liver, but yeah, it was really good. Obviously, that's where I grew up, so to be able to play venues that I went to see international bands and things like that was pretty special.
Yeah, so what was it like going back to where you started, and but returning as a, really, well, you probably left as one as well, but returning as an accomplished musician with a lot more experience than,
It was odd because it was kind of like I was probably more nervous than anything else. I think when you've got friends and family watching you for the first time, you feel a bit more judgment coming your way, because they're going to be really honest. And like I said, just playing those venues, I was very nervous, but it was worth it in the end. You just, I only started out as Fields, so solo this year, and I decided that I was going solo and that I was going to, do a tour home. So it was all very quick with a few drinks one night, and then I woke up the next morning and realized I'd emailed all these venues. I was like, oh no, now I have to do it. But I'm kind of one of those just spontaneous people, so I don't think about it, just do it. Yeah. And either regret it later or, don't. Yeah.
So what kind of stuff were you playing? Were you doing something a little different because you were back in Ireland and there was old friends and relatives?
No, I just played what I'm playing now, my field stuff. So my solo stuff is quite folky. I guess some people get a little Celtic from it, but I think that's just the Irish accent and upbeat, energetic kind of stuff. Whereas in my band, Brewfield, we're more pop rock. So a lot of people from home would have been used to seeing things like that, even though we hadn't played in Ireland, but from YouTube videos and songs that we've released, Fields is quite a bit different. So I think they pleasantly surprised.
So while we're in Ireland, tell me about how you grew up with music and what spoke to you.
Well, I didn't come from a family that played music or sang, so I'm the only one in my immediate family that sings and plays an instrument, but we were always, around music, and my parents went out to, pubs, brought us to pubs every weekend, whereas traditional music, every single pub has, some sort of trad going on. So I was always around it. And just country music. I mean, my mom's a huge Dolly Parton fan. My dad's massively into like Krista Berg. It's, it's just, and obviously U2 and all of these Irish bands that I was brought up with. So even though I mightn't listen to all of that, it's definitely ingrained in there somewhere. Yeah.
What about traditional Irish music? Because once I was fortunate enough to sit down with Bob Geldof and we're talking about his musical influences. And he said, I won't kind of try and copy his accent too much, but I do remember it to this day. He said, I wanted to listen to the Beatles and the Stones, not some going tweedle-deedle-dee. We can edit that out.
No, that's exactly what he would say.
And but I think he in his latter career kind of would entertain a little bit of folk or traditional in his music, but. Yeah, he basically discovered rock and roll in the late 60s as a teenager and rebelled against what was traditional. Did you grow up with a lot of, in the pubs and that traditional Irish music?
Yeah, I was around it definitely quite a bit, but I was brought up in the 80s where it was, pop music was just, Backstreet Boys, Madonna, like anyone, so commercial pop music was my thing growing up. So I did follow on that. I was in girl bands. Even I wrote for producers with that dancey kind of trancey music. And so my musical influences were probably a little bit different than the Irish musicians that are still in Ireland. And I kind of broke away from that a little bit moving to Australia. Actually, I was more, my eyes were open a bit more to different genres.
So when did you start writing songs and playing?
I started quite young, probably about 8 or 9, because in school we did music and musicals, and we had to get involved in writing the songs and stuff like that. So I started quite young. I noticed I really enjoyed it and continued on from there.
Okay. And so how did the girl band thing happen?
Yes. The girl band thing, I just auditioned for a girl band. There was a manager putting together a group of girls, and I got into a band, and we were called Loaded. And I hope there's literally no evidence of that anywhere, because we weren't that great. But,
This is where we insert a photo later.
And I did that for a few years, and we were on some like TV competitions and stuff like that. And then that just kind of organically fell apart. And then I went into another girl band, which was a little bit different. It was like a couple of different singers with different genres, and we would just do backing for each other. And we gigged around a bit, and then that kind of fell apart as well, and I went into writing for producers, and after that I moved to Australia. So yeah.
So how old were you when you moved to Australia, and what kind of prompted the move?
Well, I'm only here 7 years, so in my 20s I moved here, and just work. The economy in Ireland went to pot, so it was sink or swim really.
And why Perth?
The sun, and we had friends here. Yeah.
Makes sense. So,
basically.
yeah. So, what were your kind of first kind of leanings into music in Perth? How did you begin to move into that whole thing?
Yeah. Well, first I moved here, and I've got 3 kids. So I said I'm taking 2 years off and to just settle them and just kind of get warmed up to the life here. And I guess see, what the music scene was like. And after that time, then I'd, got quite bored, and I had itchy feet and had to get back into it. So I decided to write some songs. And at the time, I didn't play any instruments. So I put an ad out on Gumtree, and I met the guitarist from Brewfield. And we decided to write some songs together. And then we decided to get some more musicians on board. And that's how the band started. The band was by accident, and we all met on Gumtree. So.
Okay. Here's the Gumtree.
Yeah. You can literally get anything on Gumtree.
And so there's a couple of years now of Brewfield,
Yes.
and there's an EP release, is that right?
Yeah, we
And
released a few years ago.
and a lot of shows. So, where's the band at now? Given that you're doing Fields as a solo enterprise.
Well, we're still playing, not as regular because it's hard to get a fan base out to every show if you're playing too much locally. So we tend to do regional shows. So maybe a couple times a year. We're still writing and rehearsing and putting out songs. We're still going strong.
And when you decided to go into a solo thing as Fields, so the field is coming from Caulfield, isn't it?
Yes. The field of Brewfield.
Yes. And was the field in Brewfield from Caulfield?
Yeah. So Andy, who is the guitarist, his surname is Brunn. So we just used the first half of his surname and the second half of mine to make Brewfield.
Okay. All right. My surname is Gordon. And so when you decided to go solo, did you just think, okay, I'm doing this by myself, or was there a big, okay, this is how I'm going to do it, this kind of music, not pop rock, or was it just organic?
Like I said, originally when I decided I was getting back into music in Perth, I had put the call out just for a guitarist to help me write some songs, and then Brewfield just happened accidentally, and that's just taken over the 5 years, which is great because I don't think I'd have been ready to go solo 5 years ago, even though in my head I was like, this is what I want to do. So that 5 years has definitely made me grow as a musician and realize my strengths, and it's developed me. And then I just came to a point where I was like, okay, now I'm ready. I can play a guitar, I can just play a few open mics and see how I go. But yeah.
And so you're only a few years into even playing guitar then, because
2 to 3 years. Yeah.
So enough to now hold audiences confidently in any venue you go. But you must be like quite a motivated person, because just a lot of people say they're going to learn guitar, and if they can sing, they'll often actually just sort of go, I'll play it when I need to, I'll be second guitar, but I sing.
Yeah.
But I mean, you'll set your mind to like,
Yeah, well, if I wanted to do solo, I had no choice. I love guitar now, but I didn't, and it did take me a while to like really force myself to do it. So I'm like, I know the basics, it's fine. And as you go, you get a bit better. You know?
Yeah. What lessons have you learnt about performing, especially by yourself?
You definitely have to draw the crowd in from the get-go, and just engage them. I like to add some humor into my shows, and I think by doing that you can, like, if you let anybody get into you and you get a bit like vulnerable, the show's ruined. People can read that straight away. So you've just got to commit and be confident, and that, because it's a whole lot different than obviously being on stage with 5 people backing you, and loud music, and I've learned that you just got to commit to it and just be stronger than your audience.
Well, we're sitting on stage here, right this very stage, where an incident occurred. Well, basically it was a single launch, and someone was getting a bit rowdy, and you kind of told them just to be respectful, and that's fair enough. And then you put something on Facebook, and then Around the Sound shared it, and there's quite a lot of people commenting and piling on, kind of thing. I think, to me it's kind of obvious when you go to a gig, if it's a gig where there's someone who is there and it is background music and they're there and they know that that's what the role is. But when you're there's a poster of the person you're going to see, you paid a cover charge, and you can just walk in, that it is this kind of event.
Of course you do.
So I think, it's not, there's not one size fits all. You work to what the environment is. So how did you feel on that evening, and you spoke out, and then kind of the comments that have come up since?
Well, that was a funny situation, because it was actually one of my friends who had come to see me, and he wasn't aware how loud he was, so I did pre-warned him, and then I had to warn him again, and then I just kind of had the audience heckle him a little bit, but it was all in jest. But it did kind of bring up the scenario of this does happen, where somebody has come and it's just really disrupting everybody else. So it wasn't even more for me. I knew, like, everybody was quiet and they were enjoying it, and if there's one really loud person distracting, everybody's only 50% there, as well as the artist, So I thought it would be a good point to bring up that discussion, even though my scenario was a little bit different. And it was interesting to see some of the comments. But I think, especially online, you've got to take these things with a pinch of salt. I think the people that say, if you're at a public bar and it is background, music, people are entitled to be loud and chatty and all of that, and people are entitled to chat and have a good time. But if I can hear them over me, it's just disrespectful and it's rude. And I think the people that comment and say, oh well, I wouldn't, turn down because of whatever, I don't think they would. I think they would be respectful, but you've got this platform where you can say what you like, and people just like to oppose, don't they? So just take that with a pinch of salt. But it's interesting if people do feel that way, it kind of it makes me wonder, how you were brought up.
Well, yeah. I mean, you adjust your behaviour to the environment. You don't sit in a doctor's waiting room playing the bagpipes or something, do you?
Well, I was like, my mama told me better than that,
Yeah, so it is interesting. And the other thing is the danger of it is it can completely ruin the performer's mojo. And I've seen it happen I've seen Tim Rogers in solo kind of, or a duet with Davey Lane situations where it has gotten intolerable, and it's completely changed the tone in the middle of the performance, and also, and it's disappointing for, well, not only the artist but everyone, and performers. I guess once your mojo's struck down in the middle, it's just can get harder than okay, just get back up. It's a different thing.
And that's what I mean. You can't, you've got to try not to allow that to happen, because it will break you in a second, and the audience will they can tell, and then that's it. Everyone will start getting a bit louder, and you are background music, So I just feel like, if depending on the scenario, like you said, this was a single launch, people had come out to see me, including Loudmouth. So it was fun to shoot them down.
Well, he knows now. We all know
knows
now.
now.
We all know. There seems to be you seem to be quite a visual person, and there seems to be in everything from the beautiful film clip for Neverland to your hair, your tattoos are grand, and even your toilet selfies are spectacular.
Thank you.
You have a fairly wide 360 kind of vision for what you do, that it's not just singing behind a mic.
I know. I do say I'm quite hectic and everything, but like, you know, I'm just one of those people that has to be busy all the time, and I guess that comes out in everything that I do with, like, I guess stage outfits and performances and videos, and it's just fun to be creative, you know.
And so you're in the midst of the Neverland single tour, as we mentioned. So that's kind of takes up into January, and you're at Wham Fest in the first weekend of November.
Yeah.
So is there an album in the offing, and what's next year look like?
Yeah, I've got an EP coming out. Next single will be December, and then the EP will be January, which will be followed again by another single, maybe March. And you just continue to play shows throughout. I'm hoping to do an East Coast tour next year sometime. And yeah, just keep playing.
Keep playing. Shut up, people. Well, we'll leave it at that. It's been lovely to meet with you properly and chat,
Yeah, you
and
too.
thanks for having a round with us.
Cheers.
Cheers.
So long, my friend. Oh, this is the end. We've had our time. The latest day behind. He makes me smile, and I haven't for a while. So long, my friend. This is the end. If you said jump and say how high, let's jump into a flight, let's fly. You and I have something to take my hand. We'll go never let's fly. You and I, you and I. You and I. Never wonder what could have been, never wonder what should have been. Right, hey, you and I. Never miss my own company, giving myself up to me. Right, you and I, you and I, you and I. We'll fly so high, we'll fly to the sky. You and I. So long, my friend. This is the end. He makes me smile, and I haven't for a while. Haven't for a while. If you said jump, say how high. Let's jump till we fly.